We are live.
We're live.
I found a really delightful post-canon Legolas and Gimli fanfic that had the correct Tolkien tone the other day. It was
Yes.
It's a Gimli takes Legolas to the caves, and Legolas takes Gimli to Fangorn Forest, and then they're like, and then Gimli's like, "Are you going to sail away now?" And Legolas is like, "No, I love you." It's very sweet.
I loved it. I love it. I want to try. I'll read it someday.
Yes. Meanwhile, here is
one of my favorite literary genres these days are like of course they eventually make it to the Book of Faces where I read it, but it's like Reddit prompts and someone takes a prompt like, it turns out the creature you were scared of under your bed and was your guardian the whole time or something, and then someone would write a short story about it, and I love those. I don't know why they're so good, but some of them make me cry. That one in particular, like someone breaks into her apartment and she's scared, and then she sees him go shoo, and she hears crunching.
There's some really good ones out there. A lot of those pop up on Tumblr too. There's people who will post like short stories on Tumblr. So
it's my favorite. I don't why long form novelists feel like they have to write more sloppily than the short form amateurs who don't even consider themselves writers. I don't know. It is beyond me, but I find those a lot more readable. I do know that when I'm writing short stories, it feels you're aware of every word. And like when I had to edit down the things, the write-ups, like I've been writing a consistent 3 to 4 paragraphs and they were good. But then when I'm like, only 2 paragraphs will fit on the page, which 2 paragraphs are the good ones? You just cut out all of the slop, and suddenly it reads a lot more smoothly and tighter. Yeah. So,
yeah,
that's.
But meanwhile, we are going to read a story that by someone who was not at all interested in cutting out the slop ever at all.
No. But his is narrative slop, not wordsmithery slop.
Mm. Meanwhile, here is my project today. It is that sweater vest I've been working on for ages. This is it. This is the little sleevey bit. It's like not, I guess technically it's like
arms are tiny.
Yeah. This is the whole length of my arm right here. Thank you. Thanks for noticing. I've never once retrieved anything out from under the couch for you. But yes, no, it's gonna have like a little bit of cap sleeve at the top, so I'm doing that. And then
nice.
I will be learning a new technique, but probably not today because I need another piece of yarn for it, and the rest of this yarn is in the freezer, making sure there's no carpet beetles in it.
Oh, yeah.
I found one skein that had little things.
Infestation?
I don't think it was a current infestation, but they're like the larvae leave the little like
the shell casings.
Exactly. So yeah, they're gross, and when I see them in my yarn I freak out and I put everything in the freezer, and that's why I have had knitwear in my freezer solidly for the last 5 years, because then I forget to take it out. And then every once in a while, when I was living with Nick and Sandy, one of them would be like, why is there yarn in the freezer again? And I'd go, shh, don't worry about it, and we'd move
on. I think I've told you, but I'm not sure, that for like, I don't know, a year ago, I was like, darn it, I'm going to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I just sort of, in a desultory fashion, would occasionally consult a web page and do it for a while until I was bored or confused. And I never got very far. So about a week and a half ago, Avi decided he wanted to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube. And now he can do it in under a minute. And I'm like,
That
this,
checks out.
there's young brain for you. Also, he did the smart thing and just found YouTube how-tos. So instead of trying to follow instructions, he just watches someone else's hands and then mimics their hand movement until he has it. And then it's like, now I can do 2 layers of the Rubik's Cube. I'm sure I'll get the third, and then I'll be like, yay, I have this skill. He wants to move on and do the more complicated ones. He's really fascinated. I'm like, no, I just want to do that stupid cube that has haunted me for my whole life.
I know there's like a pattern to it that you can pick up, and then once you have it, like you just have it. But
There's like
yeah,
a
I knew.
couple of different ones. Like, and if it's once it's in this position, then you do this pattern, and then when it's in this position, you do this pattern.
Gotcha. I do not have that kind of spatial reasoning personally, but I did know a guy in college who did that in class. He would just sit there and like click, 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 solved. Click, 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 and now it's like one color in the middle and another color all around the sides. Click, 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 solved. I was like, now you're just showing off, dude.
Yeah, Abby's probably gonna end up being one of those, and if not, then no worries. It's yeah. It's
Now that he
amusing.
knows, he probably will never forget.
Right. I also wanted to share with you that we watched Wakanda Forever last night.
I have not seen it.
Oh my
goodness. Good?
It's good. Bring Kleenex.
Noted. I will watch it when I am ready to bring Kleenex to that experience.
Definitely worth watching. Reminded me strongly of WandaVision in that the way it I don't know why Marvel's got such a firm grip on how do I put it, like a feminine approach to grief. I don't know why that's a place where they're just savants, but it's like everything else is kind of hit and miss. It's action stuff, but woman's grieving, they know exactly what to say and do to make it like hit right here. You're like,
it's probably because their male characters aren't allowed to have any emotions.
That's why I couldn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, men don't grieve, they brood. And I'm like, that's not a very healthy message.
Right? That is the opposite of a healthy message. Not related to anything we were just talking about, except remembering things. Did you know that some people forget song lyrics?
Sounds like a setup for a joke.
It's not. I didn't realize that song lyrics were a thing that people like would forget, because once I have learned a song, I might not remember it like spontaneously, but if you play it, I know all the words.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm there. I'm with you. Like, huh.
And someone was like, "Oh yeah, I forget the words to this." I'm like, "You what? Is that possible? I don't understand."
Surely you mean you never knew the words to it, because there's a lot of those songs.
Yeah, no, they were specifically talking about having known words at some point and then forgotten them, or like how cool they thought it was when there was one they didn't forget. And I was like, so I don't know. Maybe they're the weird one. I usually assume that I'm the weird one if I find out that other people's brains are different, but
well, you know what? I do have a recollection of having spent, I don't know, 4 hours in Denny's back in the glory days when no one had a smartphone to consult, trying to remember one of the verses to the Highwayman. Like we were discussing it, we started singing it, we had all forgotten the same verse. And
which
so
verse was it? Have you forgotten again?
No, I remember which verse was forgotten. It was the one. Okay, so here's what it was: is there's a verse or a stanza in the poem that doesn't show up in the song, and we had all we had all been familiar with the poem, and we all knew the song, and we were like, what would be the stanza? Like, how would we sing it if we were to sing the bit with the ostler, which is super important to me.
here's the thing though, that's why you forgot it, because it wasn't attached to the tune in your brain. I feel like if it's once it's attached to a tune, because I can forget poetry. I used to know a lot more of the Raven than I do now.
Oh God, me too. I used it for fucking forensics and shit.
Yeah.
I make a reference to it in because Palladium is named for Palladium's actually named for a planetoid or a moon that was named Pallas after Pallas Athena. And so I had to look into that, and I was like, when people talk about Pallas, whether it's in Corvid poetry or in extraplanetary things, they mean Pallas Athena, not Pallas who Athena killed. I don't know how
That
many.
is a very important distinction. Did she have the name Pallas Athena before she killed Pallas?
No.
Or was this sort of a
That was a cause and effect. She was really sad that she'd killed Pallas. It was accidental. She was stronger than she knew. She broke her, and they were like foster sisters. She broke her neck, and she was really sad. So she took her name to be like, your legacy is my legacy. I will take upon myself that which I took from you. And that's where Pallas Athena came from.
That is a weird way to pick a name. Like, I know the gods are weird and all that, but like,
oh, you should see me gnash on nails when I'm writing about niobium. Like, let's talk about Niobe for a minute. Oh, look at me. I am so fecund. You're fecund, are you? Then I'm killing all your children because I'm a god and I can't.
They introduced polls on Tumblr, and one of the first things that people put up a poll was like, who's the most beautiful? And everyone was like, nope, no. we learned this is do you want a Trojan War? This is how you get a Trojan War. No.
All right. So where the hell were we? Because I'm probably not there.
Oh, you would ask me that. Let me find my book.
Oh, if Master knows where to find him, I don't. Oh, I think I know. The Mountain 2 slept uneasily? No.
No, we were past that.
Yeah.
Okay, we were in...
Lifted him. He lifted him. I remember he carried him. I'll crawl, Sam, foot by foot. Oh. Slinking. Oh. Curse you, stinking thing. Right? Like, we'd gotten past...
Yeah. Frodo. Like Frodo had cursed Gollum.
On Mount Doom, Doom shall fall.
On Mount Doom, Doom shall fall. Yes. On Mount Doom, 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 Doom. He'll fall.
And we had to... We had to discuss how Frodo, at the absolute end of his rope, who can't see anything in his mind but a wheel of fire, standing naked on a mountain, still has to say something poetic about it. Like, oh, I shall honor the occasion by saying, on Mount Doom, Doom shall fall. Because I am at heart a Shakespearean character.
Is he completely naked? I thought he still had pants on.
They took his pants. And he said he didn't want to wear orc gear anymore.
Oh no, but he's still got the elf cloak on.
Yeah.
So he's just totally naked, except for his cloak, standing over Gollum, like pronouncing his doom.
That is what is happening. Yes, according to canon.
Hey, the curse is up here, man.
Now, said Sam, at last I can deal with you. He leaped forward with drawn blade, ready for battle, but Gollum did not spring. He fell flat upon the ground and whimpered. Don't kill us, he wept. Don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel. Let us live. Yes, live just a little longer. Lost Lost. We're lost, and when precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust. He clawed up the ashes of the path with his long, fleshless fingers. Dust, he hissed. Sam's hand wavered. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. It would be just to slay this treacherous, murderous creature, just and many times deserved, and also it seemed the only safe thing to do. But deep in his heart, there was something that restrained him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body, enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. But Sam had no words to express what he felt. "Oh, curse you, you stinking thing," he said. "Go away! Be off! I don't trust you, not as far as I could kick you, but be off, or I shall hurt you, yes, with nasty, cruel steel." Gollum got up on all fours and backed away for several paces, and then he turned, and as Sam aimed a kick at him, he fled away down the path. Sam gave no more heed to him. He suddenly remembered his master. He looked up the path and could not see him. As fast as he could, he trudged up the road. If he had looked back, he might have seen, not far below, Gollum turn again, and then with a wild light of madness glaring in his eyes, come swiftly but warily, creeping on behind, a slinking shadow among the stones. The path climbed on. Soon it bent again, and with a last eastward course passed in a cutting along the surface of the cone, and came to the dark door in the mountain's side, the door of the Samath Naur. Far away now, rising towards the south, the sun, piercing the smokes and haze, burned ominous, a dull, bleared disk of red. But all Mordor lay about the mountain like a dead land, silent, shadow-folded, waiting for some dreadful stroke. Sam came to the gaping mouth and peered in. It was dark and hot, and a deep rumbling shook the air. "Frodo! Master!" he called. There was no answer. For a moment he stood, his heart beating with wild fears, and then he plunged in. A shadow followed him.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. At first he could see nothing. In his great need he drew out once more the phial of Galadriel, but it was pale and cold in his trembling hand, and threw no light into that stifling dark. He was come to the heart of the realm of Sauron, and the forges of his ancient might, greatest in Middle-earth. All other powers were here subdued. Fearfully, he took a few uncertain steps in the dark, and then all at once there came a flash of red that leaped upward and smote the high black roof. Then Sam saw that he was in a long cave or tunnel that bored into the mountain's smoking cone. But only a short way ahead, its floor and the walls on either side were cloven by a great fissure, out of which the red glare came, now leaping up, now dying down into darkness. And all the while, far below, there was a rumor and a trouble as of great engines throbbing and laboring. Which is very different from what they chose to portray it as in the movies.
It is a bit, yeah.
It's not that the walls fall away and there's a peninsula of rock. It's just that there's a tunnel with a fucking gap. It's more Indiana Jones, really.
Yeah. Well, and there's a sense that there's more like that it's a forge and not just a pit of lava.
Yeah. But a really big and dangerous forge like OSHA would not approve.
Like OSHA would not approve of anything in Middle Earth. Have you seen? There's like a short video going around that's a guy doing an OSHA inspection in Khazad-dûm.
Nope. Nope.
It's pretty great.
The light sprang up again, and there on the brink of the chasm, at the very crack of doom, stood Frodo, black against the glare, tense, erect, but still, as if he had been turned to stone. "Master!" cried Sam. Then Frodo stirred, and spoke with a clear voice, indeed with a voice clearer and more powerful than Sam had ever heard him use, and it rose above the throb and turmoil of Mount Doom, ringing in the roof and walls. And I really wish they'd used this whole speech instead of just the 3 words. "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine." And suddenly, as he set it on his finger, he vanished from Sam's sight. Sam gasped, but he had no chance to cry out, for at that moment many things happened. Something struck Sam violently in the back. His legs were knocked from under him, and he was flung aside, striking his head against the stony floor, as a dark shape sprang over him. He lay still, and for a moment all went black. And far away, as Frodo put on the ring and claimed it for his own, even in Samath Naur, the very heart of his realm, the power in Barad-dûr was shaken, and the tower trembled from its foundations to its proud and bitter crown. The Dark Lord was suddenly aware of him, and his eye, piercing all shadows, looked across the plain to the door that he had made, and the magnitude of his own folly was revealed to him in a blinding flash, and all the devices of his enemies were at last laid bare. Then his wrath blazed in consuming flame, but his fear rose like a vast black smoke to choke him, for he knew his deadly peril and the thread upon which his doom now hung. From all his policies and webs of fear and treachery, from all his stratagems and wars, his mind shook free, and throughout his realm a tremor ran. His slaves quailed, and his armies halted, and his captains, suddenly steerless, bereft of will, wavered and despaired, for they were forgotten. The whole mind and purpose of the power that wielded them was now bent with overwhelming force upon the mountain. At his summons, wheeling with a rending cry, in a last desperate race there flew, faster than the winds, the Nazgul, the ring-wraiths, and with a storm of wings they hurtled southwards to Mount Doom. Sam got up. He was dazed, and blood streaming from his head dripped in his eyes. He groped forward, and then he saw a strange and terrible thing. Gollum, on the edge of the abyss, was fighting like a mad thing with an unseen foe. To and fro he swayed, now so near the brink that almost he tumbled in, now dragging back, falling to the ground, rising and falling again, and all the while he hissed but spoke no words. The fires below awoke in anger, the red light blazed, and all the cavern was filled with a great glare and heat. Suddenly Sam saw Gollum's long hands draw upward to his mouth. His white fangs gleamed and then snapped as they bit. Frodo gave a cry, and there he was, fallen upon his knees at the chasm's edge. But Gollum, dancing like a mad thing, held aloft the ring, a finger still thrust within its circle. It shone now as if verily it was wrought of living fire. "Precious, precious, precious!" Gollum cried. "My precious! Oh, my precious!" And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment on the brink, and then with a shriek he fell. Out of the depths came his last wail, "Precious!" And he was gone. There was a roar and a great confusion of noise. Fires leaped up and licked the roof. The throbbing grew to a great tumult, and the mountain shook. Sam ran to Frodo and picked him up and carried him out to the door. And there upon the dark threshold of the Samath Nar, high above the plains of Mordor, such wonder and terror came on him that he stood still, forgetting all else, and gazed as one turned to stone. A brief vision he had of swirling cloud, and in the midst of it towers and battlements tall as hills, founded upon a mighty mountain throne above immeasurable pits, great courts and dungeons, eyeless prisons sheer as cliffs, and gaping gates of steel and adamant. And then all passed. Towers fell and mountains slid. Walls crumbled and melted, crashing down. Vast spires of smoke and spouting steams went billowing up, up until they toppled like an overwhelming wave, and its wild crest curled and came foaming down upon the land, which they did perfectly in the movie. And then at last, over the miles between, there came a rumble, rising to a deafening crash and roar. The earth shook, the plain heaved and cracked, and Orodruin reeled. Fire belched from its riven summit. The skies burst into thunder, seared with lightning. Down like lashing whips fell a torrent of black rain, and into the heart of the storm, with a cry that pierced all other sounds, tearing the clouds asunder, the Nazgul came, shooting like flaming bolts as, caught in the fiery ruin of hill and sky, they crackled, withered, and went out. Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee, said a voice by his side, and there was Frodo, pale and worn, and yet himself again. And in his eyes there was peace now, neither strain of will, nor madness, nor any fear. His burden was taken away. There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire. "Master!" cried Sam, and fell upon his knees. In all that ruin of the world, for the moment he felt only joy, great joy. The burden was gone. His master had been saved. He was himself again. He was free. And then Sam caught sight of the maimed and bleeding hand. "Your poor hand," he said, "and I have nothing to bind it with or comfort it. I would have spared him a whole hand of mine, rather. But he's gone now beyond recall, gone forever." "Yes," said Frodo. "But do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So let us forgive him. For the quest is achieved, and now all is over. I'm glad you are here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam." Which is, very, I don't know, enlightened, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's not like let's forgive him because that balances out all the evil things he did. It's just let's forgive him because his existence was a net positive.
Basically.
Still a hideously evil little creature, but his existence was a net positive, so forgive him.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, hey, he took this burden off of me in a way that no one ever did for him.
Right.
Or could have done for him.
Yeah.
So. One finger feels like a pretty small price to pay, honestly.
Right. Although I've never paid that price, so I don't know how bad it is. At least
I haven't either. And
yeah, it's a clean wound. It's not like he noshed on his whole hand or anything.
Yeah, no, he just chomp, like, allegedly, I don't know how people know this, but allegedly it's about as hard to bite off a finger as it is to bite into a carrot. We just have a mental block against it, so we don't do it.
But you know what that means? Every time you bite into a carrot, it's as difficult as biting into a finger.
You know what that means about Bugs Bunny?
No, and I don't want to. We're not going there. Chapter 4, The Field of Cormallen. A long 3 chapters.
Whew, right? My God.
And finally, we have a crosscut. Oh my. All about the hills, the hosts of Mordor raged. The captains of the west were foundering in a gathering sea. The sun gleamed red, and under the wings of the Nazgul the shadows of death fell dark upon the earth. Aragorn stood beneath his banner, silent and stern, as one lost in thought of things long past or far away. But his eyes gleamed like stars that shine the brighter as the night deepens. Let's talk about how handsome Aragorn is while his men are being slaughtered around him. I'm sorry, that's warfare. I get it.
Wait, did I read you the thing about Aragorn? I didn't,
Maybe?
did I?
No.
Can we pause because it is relevant to this conversation? And also, here is a warning for not family appropriate language. Let me find it.
Well, shucks.
Look, it's not like we're monetized anyway. I'm just saying. Okay, let me find it here.
Okay. Do, 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 do. All right, just interrupt me again when you find it. Because
Okay.
upon the hilltop stood Gandalf, and he was white and cold, and no shadow fell on him. The onslaught of Mordor broke like a wave on the beleaguered hills, voices roaring like a tide amid the wreck and crash of arms. Are you there yet?
No, I'm still trying to find it.
As if to his eyes some sudden vision had been given, Gandalf stirred, and he turned, looking back north where the skies were pale and clear. Then he lifted up his hands and cried in a loud voice, ringing above the din, "The eagles are coming!" And many voices answered, crying, "The eagles are coming! The eagles are coming!" The hosts of Mordor looked up and wondered what this sign might mean.
I found it.
Let's hear it.
I'm just saying, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Strider, one of them rangers, what his right name is, I never heard, etc., didn't need to be that sexy at the Prancing Pony. Like, ostensibly, he's trying to lay low, but even dipshit little relatively 18-year-old Frodo is like, hey, what's the deal with that extremely ostentatiously sexy man in the corner? You draw far too much attention to yourself, Mr. Underhill. If I were Frodo, I would have snapped. Jesus Christ. I can't help that I'm 2 feet shorter than everyone else in this definitely 100% a gay bar, but at least I didn't lurk in this sexy corner making eyes at everybody from under my cloak. At least I'm trying to pretend I'm not a protagonist, you fine-ass idiot. I know I'm being pursued by the Black Riders, which is why I didn't serve cunt from the shadows. The fellowship of the nerve of this bitch. Hey, what's up with that extremely ostentatiously sexy man at the last battle?
I don't know, but his eyes gleam like stars.
Serving cunt from certain defeat. All right, anyway, the eagles were there.
The eagles are coming. There came Gwaihir the Wind Lord and Landreval his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, who built his eyries in the inaccessible peaks of the encircling mountains when Middle-earth was young. It's what you needed in an action sequence is an interruption to discuss the pedigree of the participants.
Yep.
My battery's running low. How is that even oh, you're not plugged in. Hang on 2 seconds.
Check.
Ha ha! I have outsmarted you. Okay. Behind them in long, swift lines came all their vassals from the northern mountains, speeding on a gathering wind. Straight down upon the Nazgul they bore, stooping suddenly out of the high airs, and the rush of their wide wings as they passed over was like a gale. But the Nazgul turned and fled. Yeah, you better run, bitches! And vanished into Mordor's shadows, hearing a sudden, terrible call out of the dark tower. And even at that moment, all the hosts of Mordor trembled. Doubt clutched their hearts. Their laughter failed. Their hands shook and their limbs were loosed. The power that drove them on and filled them with hate and fury was wavering. Its will was removed from them. And now, looking in the eyes of their enemies, they saw a deadly light and were afraid. Then all the captains of the West cried aloud, for their hearts were filled with a new hope in the midst of darkness. Out from the beleaguered hills, knights of Gondor, riders of Rohan, Dunedain of the North, close-serried companies drove against their wavering foes, piercing the press with the thrust of bitter spears. But Gandalf lifted up his arms and called once more in a clear voice, "Stand, men of the West. Stand and wait.
Just one.
This is the hour of doom." And even as he spoke, doom! And even as he spoke, the earth rocked beneath their feet. Then, rising swiftly up, far above the towers of the Black Gate, high above the mountains, a vast soaring darkness sprang into the sky, flickering with fire. The earth groaned and quaked. The towers of the Teeth swayed, tottered, and fell down. The mighty rampart crumbled, the Black Gate was hurled in ruin, and from far away, now dim, now growing, now mounting to the clouds, there came a drumming rumble, a roar, a long echoing roll of ruinous noise. So you know what that means, and this is kind of funny, is that Barad-dûr was the only thing made with magic. Like, the Towers of the Teeth were built by Gondor. They could have survived. But Sauron is a dramatic little bitch to the end. He's like, if I'm going, I'm taking this, and I'm taking this, and I'm breaking that ground, and I'm making an earthquake.
See, and what I was thinking was, how pissed would you be if you were the orc that just oiled all of the, 5,000 hinges of the gates? Like, man, I just got done doing that yesterday. Could you have left it?
Sounds like a Phineas and Ferb take on Lord of the Rings. It would just be like random peons.
A hobbit? Frodo the Hobbit?
And we would follow Snaga as he goes out for pizza and then comes back to Cirith Ungol and everyone's dead.
It's that gif where the guy comes back with the pizzas and the room's on fire, yes.
But with all the dead horses, yeah, oiling the gate. And yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't get past the Phineas and Ferb thing.
Well, hang on, we've got a short paragraph that's important or relevant to what's been happening here. "The realm of Sauron is ended," said Gandalf. "The ring-bearer has fulfilled his quest." And for once, he's not taking credit.
Indeed, but also no one around him knows what the fuck he's talking about.
That's true. What?
The ring bearer has fulfilled his quest. What? Who?
Huh? That's a really good point. It was a military secret. They fucking knew.
Literally nobody knows except Aragorn and Gandalf.
Well, yep, Pippin's passed out. He's the only other one that knows. He's passed out patrol. And as the captains gazed south to the land of Mordor, thinking, who? It seemed to them. It seemed to them that black against the pall of cloud there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous it reared above the world and stretched out towards them a vast, threatening hand, terrible but impotent. They have pills for that. For even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away and passed, and then a hush fell. And that's
is your terrifying tower crumbling?
Do your minions not seem to know what to do?
Is your hand of shadow just not thrilling your enemies like it used to? Try evil Agra.
If your dominion lasts longer than 4 hours, please consult a doctor.
May cause excessive ring rapes.
Use protection, by which we mean armed guards at all of the entrances to your land. Good stuff. I mean,
we have successfully ruined another extremely tense moment of the book.
It's not ruined. It's accentuated, and I'll never not think of the fucking the Phineas and Ferb. Like, you could do a whole series. A series of short films about Snaga and his. Oh, and it could. Snaga just means slave, and we know that that's just what they call everyone who doesn't have a name in Mordor. But what if it was always the same guy, like Snaga? Because so then the Snaga that shot the one dude goes back to his orc hold, and they're like, "Where's the dude who took you out to sniff stuff?" And he's like, "He left."
His grandmother was on fire.
He's
anyway, I'm gonna go. What?
He's on the moon with Steve.
Well, I'm even going farther back and being like, what if Snaga was with the group of orcs that kidnapped Merry and Pippin, and he went off to like pee in the woods, and when he came back, Amber killed everybody. So then he finds his way to Barad-dûr, or not to Barad-dûr, to Cirith Ungol.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes out for pizza, and when he gets back, everybody's dead. So he goes, gets taken out as a tracker, kills the guy, comes back, gets sent to the front.
I don't know when this would line up, but if he went to Cirith Ungol via the Morgul Pass, then maybe he shows up like right after they've set fire to all the flowers. Like,
I'm just gonna go up there and see what's going on. No, that's the thing. You get there after they burned the flowers. He'd be like, I'm going to Cirith Ungol to see what's happening. He would get there. Everyone would be dead already. He'd be like, shit, I guess I'll just go to the next stronghold. That's where they send him out as a tracker. He kills the guy. He comes back. They send him to the front as a punishment, where he oils the gates right before they fall. He's still got the mop in his hand. Oh my god. Yes.
Oh, yeah, the misadventures of Snaga. It needs to happen.
It really does.
Oh.
Well, on that note.
Yeah. It writes itself. It really does. I love you.
I love you too. I will see you next week.
Yes, indeed. Cuidado.
Veamos.